We continue now at the top of Daf Lamed Gimel Amud Beis in Mesechet Kesubos. This is Kesuvos Daf 33b. On the previous summer, the Gemara was discussing a possible source for the idea that if a person wounds his friend, so the punishment is not going to be malchus, it's going to be mammon, it's going to be a monetary payment. And so the Gemara wanted to bring the pasuk, which discusses two people who are arguing with one another, and then they end up injuring a pregnant woman. So the Gemara had assumed that they're warned over there for the death penalty, because the intention was the person wanted to kill his friend, and the Gemara had assumed that if you're warned for the death penalty, that certainly includes a warning for lashes, because lashes is more lenient than the death penalty, and therefore still you're paying money and you're not getting lashes. It's a proof that the punishment is going to be tashlumin. And so the Gemara is in the middle of asking on that proof, and the Gemara says, Dilma Malkus Chomer, maybe actually Malkus is actually more strict than the death penalty, and therefore maybe there was no warning for Malkus included, so it would be no proof. Diyama Rav, because Rav said, Ilmoli Nagdua leChananya Mishal v'Azarya. Had they simply given lashes to Chananya, Mishal v'Azarya, Palchu l'Tzalma, so then they actually would have bowed down to the idol. In other words, the lashes would have been a stronger punishment for them in their eyes than the death penalty. And the Gemara continues, Amar le Rav Sama Breder Rav Asi le Rav Ashi. Rav Sama Breder Rav Asi said to Rav Ashi, V'amri lo, some have the version as follows, Rav Sama Breder Rav Ashi le Rav Ashi. Rav Sama, the son of Rav Ashi, said to Rav Ashi, V'lo shani lach, but don't you make a distinction? How can you say that Malchus is more chamer and bring a proof from Chanani, Mishal, v'Azarya? Don't you make a distinction Bein hakosha yesh lo kitzva, between hitting somebody where there's an end to it, meaning by lashes in the Torah, so there's a limit, there's just 40 lashes. So there, that's actually more lenient than the death penalty. You can't compare that to a situation where they're being lashed by a foreign government where there is no limit. That, of course, could actually be worse than the death penalty. And the Gemara continues, Maskifla Rav Yaakov min Har Pekod. Rav Yaakov min Har Pekod asked on this proof again from this case of the two men who are fighting and then they hit the pregnant woman. Hanichol Rabbanan, that works well. It's a good proof according to the Rabbanan. The Amri Nefesh Mamish. They say we're talking over here about really a situation of the death penalty. As Rashi over here says, Hanichol Rabbanan de Amri b'Sanhedrin be'Elohen anisrafim. They say in Sanhedrin, Niskavin laro gazeh v'hara gazeh, that if you have intention to kill one person and then you end up killing another person, again, that's the case in the pasuk, chayiv, that you're chayiv in terms of the death penalty. V'hayvin asat nefesh mamish kamar. It means to say that it really is a death penalty. Islan lemeidak v'uk mekra b'shehisru bo lemei lefti afagav d'ikasra yeyonish maman kashein shamisa. So then you can have a real limit over here. That over here they were warned for the death penalty, which includes malchus, and then you have a proof that the ultimate punishment is going to be mammon and not malchus. That all works according to the Rabbanan. Ella Rebbe, but according to Rebbe, Do Amar, who says mammon, that we're talking over here of an asat nefesh, it's not even talking about the death penalty at all. It's talking about mammon. Rashi over here says, Ella Rebbe Damar Hasam Niskavin Laro Gezeh V'Hara Gezeh. He says that if you have intention to kill one person, you kill a different person. Ain't no nereg. There's no death penalty. Ella Mishalim Dmeho Ishalu Yorsha. You pay the value of the woman to those who inherit her. So then, Imkain, if so, after look Mekrab B'Shalo Isrubo, it could be the pasuk's not even talking about with a warning. Umisham Hachi, and that's the reason. Ki Ein Asr Mishalim Dmei Valdas. That's the reason that if nobody dies, you end up paying money, because there's no warning for lashes. Again, if there is a death, let's say to the woman, you pay the value of the woman. But if there was a warning, maybe the punishment would be malchus and not to pay money. So according to Rebbe, you don't really have this proof. That's what the Gemara means. What are you going to say? What's the proof according to Rebbe? And so the Gemara continues, Elo Amar Rav Yaakov min Har Pekod mishmei de Rava. Rather, Rav Yaakov from the Har Pekod said in the name of Rava. The following is the source. Mehacha, the source comes from here, from the following pasuk. Im Yokum v'salech b'chutz al meshanto v'niko hamak. It says, let's say a person injures another person, but then the person ends up doing okay. He heals. He doesn't die. He goes. He walks outside. So then the person who hit him is going to be innocent. And so the Gemara says, V'chisal al daitach. Would you ever think the opposite of this? Would you ever think shezem mahalach b'shuk, that the person who was injured, he's going around walking in the marketplace, nothing ends up happening to him, and then this other guy gets killed, now we're going to kill the person when he didn't end up doing anything wrong? So obviously that's not the case. So what's the pasuk telling us? Ella, rather, Malamid, the pasuk is teaching us as follows. Malamid shechov sheno, so what happens is we have to imprison the person. Let's say a person seriously injures another person, and we don't know if the person will die or not, so you have to imprison the perpetrator. V'imis, and then if the person who was injured, if he ends up dying, katlinanle, so then we are going to kill the person who injured this person who ultimately had caused this other person to die. V'ilomis, now if the person does not die, let's say he heals, so shivto yitain v'rapo yirape, so then he's going to have to pay sheves, he's going to have to pay for the refuah, he's going to have to make the monetary payments. And so the Gemara says, Hechi dami. So what exactly is the case in this pasuk? Idalo asrubei. Now, if there was no warning whatsoever, so am I mikdal, so why should he ever get the death penalty? Even if the person who was injured ultimately dies, the person who caused the injury would not get the death penalty without a warning. Elapshita da asrubei. Obviously, the case must be where there was a warning. Musr ladavar chamar, musr ladavar hakal. And we have to say that if you're warned, or we should say that if you're warned for something strict, that includes a warning for something more lenient like lashes. So there was a warning for lashes. Yet, v'yamar achmana shifto yitain v'rapo yirapo. Yet the pasuk says that he pays sheves, he pays for the refuah, meaning to say you pay for the lost wages, you pay for the healing. The punishment is going to be a monetary punishment and not the lashes. That would be the proof that the punishment is tashlumin and not malchus. And so the Gemara continues along the same lines as above. Maskif la Rav Ashi. Rav Ashi asks as follows: Mimai de musr ladavar chamar have musr ladavar hakal. First of all, how do you know that if you're warned for something strict, that automatically includes a warning for something more lenient? How do you know that if you're warned for the death penalty, that includes lashes? Dil malo have, maybe that's not true. V'im tim salomar have, even if you say it is true. Mimai de misa chamura dil malchus chamar. How do you know that the death penalty is stricter? Maybe really malchus is the stricter punishment of the two. Diyamar Rav, because Rav said el moli nagdua. Chananya Mishal V'Azariah, had they only given lashes to Chananya Mishal V'Azariah instead of death, Palchu L'Tzalma, then they would have bowed to the Avodah Zarah. So Amar Le Rav Sama Brei de Rav Asi Le Rav Ashi. So Rav Sama Brei de Rav Asi said to Rav Ashi, V'Amri Lo Rav Sama Brei de Rav Ashi Le Rav Ashi. Some say it's Rav Sama Brei de Rav Ashi said to Rav Ashi, you can't bring a proof from Chananya Mishal V'Azariah, like we said above. V'Lo Shani Lach Ben Hakosh Yesh L'Kitzvah L'Hakosh Ein L'Kitzvah. Don't you make a distinction between hitting somebody where there's an end, like the death penalty by Bezdin, to a situation where you're hitting somebody where there is no end to it. Let's say it's given not by a Jewish Bezdin. And Mazgiv Lo Rav Mari, and Rav Mari asks on this, Mimai Devemezid V'Nika Mikatola. How do you know that over here, the case over here was the guy got up and he healed, and therefore it says that the person is innocent. And so therefore we're assuming that he hit him on purpose and he becomes innocent, or he becomes cleared of all charges in terms of the death penalty. That's the assumption of the whole proof, is that we're talking about a death penalty, a potential death penalty, and then when he's cleared of the charges, so it seems that he's cleared from the death penalty, but he had a warning for the death penalty, and we tried to bring a proof that the punishment ultimately is going to be a monetary payment and not lashes. But how do you know that the case in the pasuk is where he kills him b'mezid and he's being cleared in terms of the death penalty? Dilma b'shogeg v'nika migalus. Maybe the pasuk is talking about a totally different case. Maybe it's talking about where he kills him by mistake, and he's really, when the person gets healed, he ends up being cleared from the punishment of galus, from the punishment of exile. Then you'd have no proof at all from this pasuk. And to that the Gemara says, Kasha, indeed, that is difficult in terms of the proof from this pasuk. It is not a great proof because of this possibility that the pasuk is talking about galus. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. Reish Lakish Amar, Reish Lakish says, Hamani Rebbe Meir, who's the author of our Mishnah? We had a contradiction between our Mishnah and the Mishnah in Makos in terms of a situation where a person rapes his sister. So in our Mishnah, it says that he pays the fine. But in Mesechet Makos, it says you have a punishment of Malchus. So how could it be that you pay the fine if you're already getting Malchus? And so Reish Lakish is answering, our Mishnah follows Rebbe Meir, Do Amar Loko Mishalim. Rebbe Meir says a person can get Malchus and also pay. It's possible to get both punishments. Rashi over here says, Reish Lakish Mahader Ashenuya Derumyo Deraminan Bereish Maitin Masnisin Demakos Ad Chsubas. Reish Lakish is answering the original contradiction we said earlier between the Mishnah in Makos and our Mishnah over here. Hamani Masnisin Dekatani Bala Choso Nosen Kanas. Our Mishnah, which says that if he has relations with his sister, he has to pay the fine. Rabbi Meir, he that follows the position of Rabbi Meir, Damar Le'el Loko U'Mashalim. He's the one that said earlier that you could get Malchus and pay. Shalom Hashem Hamaviu Lidei Makos Maviu Lidei Tashlumin, because this pasuk which brings you to Makos is not the same pasuk that brings you to Tashlumin. It's possible to get both punishments. But the Gemara says, Rabbi Meir, but if you're going to say that our Mishnah is Rabbi Meir, Afilu Bito Nami, then that should extend even to his own daughter. Rashi over here says, Afilu Bito Nami demiktalalo. Let's say a person were to rape his own daughter, so there, it's not going to be a punishment of Malchus and Tashlumin. There it's actually going to be a situation where there's a death penalty at the hands of Bezdin. So there also L'Shalim, there also he should pay money, and he should get the death penalty. Because Rabbi Meir in general rejects the concept of Kimle b'derabamine, that let's say you have two punishments, that you always get the stricter one. He says no, you can get both. So why does it say in the Mishnah that if a person has relations with his daughter, why does it say over there that in such a situation he's pater from kanas? That's not true. Again, according to Rabbi Meir, it should be true in all situations. We should say there's no kimle b'derabamine and afilu bito nami. Now maybe you'll try to answer that Rabbi Meir says it's possible to get malchus and pay, but it's not possible to get the death penalty and to also pay. But that's not true, v'lo, but is that not really possible according to Rabbi Meir? V'atanya, but we learned in a brisa, gona v'tavach b'Shabbos, let's say a person steals and he slaughters the animal on Shabbos, gona v'tavach la'avodas kochavim, or let's say he steals and he slaughters to avodah zarah. These are cases that involve the death penalty. And then gonav shor hanisko, let's say you have a situation where a person steals a shore which is supposed to be stoned, v'tavcho, and then he slaughters that animal, meshalin tashlumi arba v'chamisha. So just like any situation of stealing and slaughtering the animal, you have to pay 4 or 5 times the amount. Divrei Rabbi Meir, that's Rabbi Meir's opinion. The Chachamim pocher and the Chachamim say pater, and here you have a very clear example in the Brisa of Rabbi Meir's opinion that even in situations of the death penalty, we're still going to say again by Tavach b'Shabbos, Tavach la'avodah zarah, we're still going to say that there is an obligation of making a payment. And so to that the Gemara answers, Ha'itmar Allah, no, but it was said on that Brisa as follows: Amar Rabbi Yaakov, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yaakov said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, V'amri lo Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah, Amar Rabbi Shimon Lakish. Some have the version that it was Rabbi Yirmiyah saying that Rabbi Shimon Lakish said. Rabbi Avin, Rabbi Law, V'chol Chavurasa Mishmei Rabbi Yochanan Amri, and Rabbi Avin and Rabbi Law, and the entire group in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, they all said as follows to explain this Brisa: B'toveach al yedei acher. The case over here is that he didn't shecht the animal directly, he didn't violate Shabbos or shecht it to avodah zarah. He had an agent, he had a shliach do the shchita for him, and so that's why it says since he doesn't have the death penalty because he didn't do the actual shchita, that's why he pays the money. There's no proof from this Brisa that Rabbi Meir holds you can get the death penalty and also pay. But the Gemara says, 1 second, does that even make any sense? Can the shliach do the sin, and then the person who sent him, he's chayev to pay the knas? There's a general concept, says Rashi, of ein shliach ledvar aveira. Rashi over here says, you think that a shliach does the shchita, and then all of a sudden the person who sent him, he has to pay the money of the 4 and 5 times the amount, that knas. We said in Kedushin, there is no shliach for dvar aveira, so how could that make any sense at all anyways? And so the Gemara says, Amar Rava says, Amar Achmana, the Pasuk says, Utvacho Mecharo, it says he slaughters the animal, or he sells the animal. Again, this is the situation where you steal an animal, you slaughter it, you sell it, you have to pay 4 or 5 times the amount. And so the idea is as follows: Ma mechira al yedei acher. Just like it's impossible to sell something without someone else involved, you have to sell it to a buyer. Avtavich al yedei acher. So too, when it says slaughtering, we understand this is an exception to the rule of ein shliach ledvar aveira. Even if you have it slaughtered by somebody else, you're still going to be chayiv to pay the knas. Devei Rabbi Shmuel Tana, in the yeshiva of Rabbi Shmuel, they taught, O l'rabos as hashliach. The pasuk has an extra word O, and therefore that pasuk comes to say that even if he does it through a shliach, he's going to be chayiv. Devei Chizkiya Tana, they taught in the yeshiva of Chizkiya, tachas, another extra word. It says in the pasuk tachas l'rabos as hashliach. That comes again to include the shliach. Maskif lo Mar Zutra, but Mar Zutra asked on this as follows: Mika midi di ilu avariu. Does this make sense? Is there such a situation where if he himself would have done the slaughtering, lo mechayiv, he wouldn't be chayiv because again he already has the death penalty? We would say kimle b'deravimine. V'yavet shlichu mechayiv. Then suddenly he has a shliach do it for him, and now he does have to pay. That doesn't make sense. How could that be? And so the Gemara says, no, it does make sense. Because when he does it himself, it's not that he's not chayiv to pay the money. Technically, he is chayiv. It's just there's a principle that if you have 2 punishments, you get the stricter of the 2. So the obligation to pay money is there, but then it is erased because he's already obligated with the death penalty. But therefore, if somebody else would be doing the actual action of the tzvicha, of the slaughtering, so then he would have to pay the money. But the Gemara still continues. If you're going to say this Bryce is talking about where somebody else does the slaughtering, a shliach of his does the slaughtering, so what's the reason of the Rabbanan in the Bryce? The Rabbanan in the Bryce say he doesn't need to make the payment, but now there's no kimle b'deravimine anymore, so why is he pater? And to that the Gemara answers, Man chachamim, who is this chachamim in the Bryce? And we'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Lamed Dalid Amud Aleph.